¿Qué pasa, homifelas? Bienvenidos una vez más a mi canal. No me voy a extender con la intro, os voy a presentar a Ephemeral Remy. Bueno, más bien se va a presentar él mismo, lo conoceréis de Instagram.
Hey homifellas, thanks for tagging me in Renez's videos and pictures, and thanks for tagging him in mine.
Es este chico que se está cubriendo su cuerpo previamente tatuado con un proyecto de blackout. Se está cubriendo completamente de negro. Es un personaje muy interesante con el que he tenido algo de contacto, pero después de recibir 1000 mensajes de que analice sus tatuajes, de que haga no sé qué, y él recibir un montón de comentarios en su Instagram en donde me tagueáis a mí en sus fotos y él y yo como que ya hemos hablado previamente, nos conocemos y todo el rato subo una foto y ve ahí @RenéZZ y es como vale. Así que evidentemente teníamos que hacer algo así, yo tenía ganas de empezar las entrevistas, me alegro de que haya sido el primero porque es un tío muy agradable, es un tío que ha sido increíble trabajar con él y os voy a presentar ahora la entrevista entera. Le he hecho 10 preguntas sobre su proyecto, sobre tatuajes en la cara, sobre sociedad, adaptación, todo este tipo de temas que nos interesan tanto. El único problema, que es en inglés, pero también me he tomado la molestia de poner los subtítulos, que los podéis activar dándole abajo al CC de YouTube. Hay una herramienta ahí que en la propia pantalla que podéis poner los subtítulos, así que metedle like y os dejo con Ephemeral Remy y con las primeras preguntas.
¡Achis! 3%. ¡Achis!
It's kind of cool and it's interesting and it's edgy.
Me llevo follando a tu bitch. Cerca el Club Megatrix. La verga del negro si la hace feliz.
Hey homifellas, thanks for tagging me in Renez's videos and pictures, and thanks for tagging him in mine. We've been hearing from you for a while that you want to see us have this interview, so I'm happy that we're finally doing it. I'm at Ephemeral Remy on Instagram and TikTok, and The Remy Show on YouTube. Just started a podcast if you're interested in knowing more. So I'm 32 years old. I have a 12-year-old son, and I've been married for 4 years. I have a clothing line at Ghost Spine Co.
Bien, primera pregunta. How old were you when you got your first tattoo? What did you get and how did you feel afterwards?
My first tattoo was my son's name. When I found out he was going to be born, I got his name tattooed. It was also the name of my grandfather. I was 18 years old, and at the time I didn't know if I'd get more tattoos or not. Tattoos were never a huge part of my vision because I was just mostly full of piercings then, and that's kind of how I was for a long time. I just had a few tattoos and a lot of piercings. Wasn't until I was a bit older and I owned a house already that I really started getting into tattoos heavily.
What was the trigger that made you go for a full body blackout project?
The blackout started when I got to the end of my first tattoo suit and I wasn't real happy with my right arm. It seemed like no matter how many times we tried to touch it up, it just wasn't what I wanted it to be. So since I already liked black tattoos anyway at that point, I decided to first black out my upper part of the arm. And after that happened, I looked at that for a little while and thought it would look better with the whole arm black. And it just kept rolling from there. And obviously, I am who I am today.
Did you feel like your social interactions, like meeting new people or attending social events, have changed after you got your most obvious and visible tattoos?
None of those tattoos or piercings really changed my daily social experience much in person because I've always looked this way. I've always been different. I've always had piercings and I've always had crazy hairdos and stuff. So I haven't really experienced much change in person, but online, more and more, the farther I go, the more willing people are to tell me just how awful it all is. But again, I don't ever get that in person.
Some kids nowadays might feel that getting a face tattoo will make them more attractive or that more guys or girls will be more interested in them. What's your experience and opinion about this?
I got my first face tattoos about 9 years ago, nearly 9 years ago. I had 2 stars on my face now I have the roses. And those came after I'd already had quite a few visible tattoos. I had my neck tattooed and I had several facial piercings. These days I see kids get them, sometimes it's their first tattoo, and I don't really think that's a good idea. I think you should have some idea what it will be like to have visible tattoos and piercings before you get into that, and then make that decision. I think that face tattoos are awesome, but you should have some experience first. That's my opinion on that.
This is not about me, but when I see my most visible tattoos, I tend to think about heavy music and how music genres like deathcore have influenced me when it comes to get tattoos, and never thinking, I might regret this. Does this work in a similar way for you, or what's the source of your passion about dark aesthetics?
What got me into a darker aesthetic in general, as a kid, I was always a little bit interested in vampires, and my father listened to metal, and my older brother listened to metal, and I always found like the idea of vampires and gothic looking stuff really intriguing. Obviously, I'm sitting now in a room full of Halloween stuff. This isn't actually mine, this is my wife's, but I do like it. I've always liked this kind of stuff. For me, it came from that aspect of life where I was always looking at horror stuff and listening to metal music, and that's kind of what inspired the look for me.
What do you do for a living? Have you had any impediments when it comes to stay in a company, or when it comes to try to find a new job?
I have been a cook for 18 years as a primary job, and I've been running a kitchen for most of that time. I've been in charge of many lines over the years. I've been training new cooks for 15 years. So I've never had trouble with having a job. I've always had employment, and I have no worry about that ending. If I were to lose the job I have now, I know it would be very easy to get another job because I have that skill so sturdy, so, well planned, and for so long that it would be really easy for me to get another job out of that.
Blackout tattoos are something in vogue nowadays. They are shocking and difficult to understand for the average tattoo user who's still more attached to figurative elements like flowers, animals, faces, and so on. How could you explain a blackout tattoo or a blackout project to someone who doesn't understand that level of abstraction yet?
The black tattoos are really hard to explain to some people, for sure, but they were even hard for me to understand, because at one point I seen a guy walking around with a couple black arms, and I thought, what a waste of space that is. But as my own journey progressed, I realized that a lot of the reason people get tattoos to begin with is just because they want a new tattoo. Like, how many filler tattoos do people end up with by the time they get a full suit? And how much does fire or dots or wind bars mean? So to understand why someone would black out, you need only really understand that a lot of what people are doing when they get tattoos is they just want that experience. They just want to get a new tattoo. So blackout is just another new tattoo, but every week for 800 hours worth of tattooing almost these days.
How long are your sessions normally? Do you have any ritual when it comes to getting new ink?
My tattoo sessions, though, that being said, going weekly, once a week, and it used to be twice a week, I only like to sit for 2 to 3 hour sessions these days. The longest I have ever sat for was 9.5 hours, but that's not a pleasant day, and it's not one that I really want to be doing often.
This one is related to the previous one. Do you have any piece of advice for those who want to get a full bodysuit or huge pieces of tattoo, but they are not sure if they are able to handle the pain of going through so many sessions?
So what my advice would be, if you're wanting a bodysuit, is to plan to do it as a marathon, do it over time, do it in a way that you can keep doing it, in a way that you won't be thinking about it, dreading it beforehand or in the moment. You want to be going into it going, this won't be so bad, this will be over before I know it, and I'll be at home, And that's the way I prepare for a tattoo, is don't think about it until you're there. And that's been how I've gotten to where I am now. The pain never stops hurting. You just get better at understanding it, really.
And last question, when are you planning on finishing your blackout bodysuit? Any future plans after that regarding body modifications or new ink? And what about the face?
I have no real plans to ever be finished getting tattooed and pierced, really. I mean, I don't really plan on any new piercings necessarily, but the ones I have are kind of, who knows how big they'll be. I always say that I'm finished with my septum and my labret piercing, but right now I'm stretching my conches. I just stretched them this morning, actually. One size bigger for each. I plan on getting my tongue split eventually. And once the blackout is finally finished, I do plan on doing black lines over the old black work eventually. But I don't plan on doing a whole new suit, just some additions. Just maybe one here, maybe one here, one here, that sort of thing.
So thank you, Ephemeral Remy, for the interview. It was a pleasure. See you around. Y vosotros, homifelas, espero que os haya gustado la entrevista, espero que le metáis like. Si este vídeo tiene éxito, me tomaré la molestia de hablar con todas las personas que me resultan interesantes con el tema del tatu e iré entrevistándolos o al menos proponiéndoles la idea para ir subiendo este tipo de vídeos al canal y que aprendamos un poco más a tener una visión un poco más extensa o diversificada de cómo se puede entender el tatu y de cómo lo entienden otras personas que ya tienen mucha experiencia en el tema. Dejadme un comentario diciendo qué os ha parecido, seguid a Remy en su Instagram, lo dejaré todo en la descripción y nada más, nos vemos en el siguiente vídeo.